Hey y'all, here is today's tea tasting from Vietnam Kim Tuyen. I'm assuming that's how it's said. It's a black tea, and here are the leaves. And let me zoom in a little bit here. So, first thing I spotted was actually some sticks. There are actually some sticks in there. See, here's oops. See, here's another one. It's a stick. But then there are these really big, kind of fat, full leaves. And there are also, like if you look right in here, there's actually, even right in here, some golden tips on this tea. And I always love seeing golden tips. And so here's what the wet looks like. There's a little bit of green in there. See, here's another stick. Oops, I lost it, but I saw it. But here's the color of the liqueur. Very classic, nice, smooth. And here it is in my cup. So here are my tasting notes for this Vietnam Kim Tuyen, and I never did find out exactly how that was pronounced, so I could be pronouncing it wrong, and most likely I am. So I went to the Google translation and did Vietnamese to English, and Kim means gold, and Tuyen means route. So there you can see the translation graphic as gold. Here you can see the translation graphic of Tuyen as route. But when I put in the full Kim Tuyen with the little dildy on top, the translation comes out to pearl. And so I had to look up what pearl meant in English, and the definition of pearl is a cord of twisted gold. I thought that was kind of cool. So, and it also says, if you see down here, the translations are pearl or bullion. And so bullion, of course, would fit. I've heard of some countries calling tea bullion because we call it liqueur as well, or liquid. I've heard it called liquid. So all of these things are fitting, but the gold I find interesting because it makes me think of golden tips in tea. So that is actually turns out to be a little applicable to my Vietnamese, and I've spelt this wrong, friends, my tea pals on Facebook. I met them in a chat and then talked to them on Facebook when I was drinking this tea. They said Tim Tuyen just means a cultivar of the Camellia sinensis plant. That's all it means to them. So I have no idea why these translations come out that way. Anyway, that's my research. There's today's date. This is a black tea. The website says the origin is in north of Vietnam. Now, to me, north of Vietnam means someplace north of Vietnam, like another country, the country above Vietnam. But I don't really think that's the case. I believe this is grown in Vietnam, and that's just poorly worded. But it's still very, very broad. We're going to look at that for what North Vietnam means. I Googled it to see if this tea was on what other websites, and they either matched the description exactly because they all copied the same one, or they were totally different on location. And I made sure, because this tea I found, the Kim Tuyen tea, comes in oolong as well. And so I made sure I was looking at just the black ones, and they were all different. So I could not come to a complete consensus, and I was left wondering where this tea was from. So that's what caused me to first get on and seek out some tea pals on Facebook. So this map shows the relation of Vietnam to other popular tea growing regions such as India, which you see there's Vietnam, and over here's India, and down here's Sri Lanka, and of course China and Taiwan, and way up there's Japan. Those are some other very popular places that we buy tea from. This website is super good. If you really want to know more about Vietnamese and the area, go there and read. I just grabbed some graphics. So these are the regions of Vietnam, and you have Northwest and Northeast, Red River, and North Central Coast, all the way down there in the blue. So as you see, the north of Vietnam is very, very, very broad. Very broad. I mean, there's no way of telling really where this tea comes from by the description on the website. And these are the southern regions of Vietnam. So on the website, it shared this northeast region. This is where a lot of the green teas come from. And they say they come from this Nguyen. I think Nguyen is actually pronounced Win. I can't believe I might actually know that. Win, like W-I-N. And so if you look up here, you see that as this number one region in the green. And if you go back up here, you see that is that northeast region in the green. So going on down to their maps, then they say that oolong teas mainly come from this area, and you see that area is in this Central Highlands area. And then if from the website, it also lists this green area that wild teas come from here. And so you see that's that northwest area. So just my first experience with a Vietnam tea, and I'm getting familiar with the locations. I always enjoy doing that, but I'm still left wondering. And here's another map from this website. Actually, it was on Pinterest. I couldn't find it on their website, but it does credit them. And it does talk about the tea growing regions. And so you see those same regions at the top. And you see these regions here where they talked about in the dark green where the oolong would come from. And I've actually not blown this up to read that fine print yet, but it talks about some things. We'll have to do that another day. So these are the two folks that I talked to that live in Vietnam on Facebook. And I said I had a great chat on Facebook with some folks in Vietnam while I did the tasting. It was 9 a.m. here and 10 p.m. there, and it was so much fun. I mean, Really, the tea world, the internet just brings people together around the world, and I just love that. It's just always amazed me. So you see, this person suggests that there are some the black grown in this same region. If we go up here, this same region here, this Tuyen region where the website mentions some green teas are from, and that of course is up there in the northeast area. So my best guess is that's where this is grown. That's my best guess, with the help of some friends, some pals. And it was also suggested that this cultivar was grown here, but this would probably be the oolong variety. So, variety processing. I don't know. The website didn't give me anything. It's black tea is always 100% oxidized, so that's all I know. I do see golden tips, and I also saw some sticks. And so I've been taught that sticks mean fillers, so that the tea company can make more money because they take up space but don't really lend or provide to the tea. But from my personal experience with sticks and stem only teas, which I absolutely love, like hojicha, I find that they can add to the taste and change. And I've had other teas with sticks in them. So I don't immediately think, like I've been taught, that is just filler, because sometimes I think it can be done on purpose. So notes from that same website. That was the best website. It was so helpful for me. This is a cultivar imported from Taiwan and used for oolong and green tea production. And you can see there that TeaGschwendner is the cultivar. That's the name in Taiwan, but this is the name in Vietnam. So as I understand it, it's imported and grown in Vietnam, except for this particular tea is a black tea. So this cultivar in Vietnam is not well known to be processed into black tea. It's more well known to be processed into oolong and green tea. So that makes this a little bit more unique tea. So from the website, these tea plants are old tea plants still partially grown in the north of Vietnam, and smallholders of surrounding villages process the leaves traditionally. I guess traditionally would be black. Mahogany colored, sweet, and full bodied. Now for preparation, they recommend 12 grams per 1 liter. 1 liter. I was like, okay, are we making iced tea? Because, usually you see the directions for making tea in 8-ounce glasses. And then for a gaiwan, that is about 4 or 5 ounces, depending on the size of your gaiwan. And so you always have to consider what you're putting it into. 1 liter might be a traditional English teapot. But they suggest enjoy it unsweetened or with a small amount of white rock candy. I did unsweetened. So it made me think that they were encouraging larger brewing amounts. So I did find that it was on the mahogany, and it's not often, because I made up this tea scale of colors myself by looking up color names on the internet. And so when I get a description that matches my color scheme that I made up, I think that's sweet. And yeah, it did have some red tint in it. This mahogany and cedar are the one, and a little bit of nutmeg are the ones that have red tints to them. And I did find that it had a red tint and was fairly dark tea. Um, Not as dark as some others that I've cut. There was one other I come up with, a mahogany. It has that red tint, but it isn't as dark, I don't think. So the Aroma Flavor. So we smelled the dry, and my first impression was just that classic malty black tea, like you are familiar with, that everybody translates into what tea is supposed to taste like. But then I decided it was also sweet, and I could smell some sweetness. And I also could smell a bit of roasted. My husband was one that said he thought it smelled roasted. And I thought I could get a bit of that. And it also kind of smelled earthy. So I put earthy, and then for the malty, that's a grain and starch. So the wet smelled much different. Now I have a belief that a tea should smell, I learned this in a class on professional tasting notes, and that's something I look for because it was one of the first classes I ever took. So I have a belief that a tea should smell and taste the same throughout, from dry to the finish. And all I smell in the wet is the classic malty tea. So these other notes, the sweetness and maybe the roasted or earthy, they just went away. And it did smell much different in the wet, which would lower its professional rating. But then again, I'm not a professional, so it doesn't really affect my rating. But I still take note of it. Body, I put full, but it's really more of a medium full instead of a full. Astringency, bright light, very, very nice. It reminds me of the astringency of a Ceylon. Now, I do not like Assams because they're too astringent. And so I always tend to gravitate to Ceylon. So if it has if it says Ceylon and maybe a blend of a tea or something, I'm like, that's it. I know I'm going to like that tea. This reminded me of that kind of astringency. The taste was a classic tea, malty, and sweet. Here's the thing that jumped out at me immediately. It stood out that the finish was mouth-watering. I mean, that just jumped out to me. And when I asked my husband, I always try to think what my answer is before I ask him what his, and he said the same thing. And we don't say that very often. I mean, so it was really mouth-watering. That was the unique thing to me about this tea. It was a little bit lingering on the malty taste, not a whole lot. Rating, I gave this one 4 hearts. It's a great alternative to Ceylon teas. Now, I will actually go out and just buy an order of Ceylon tea to make as iced tea in the summer, and kind of keep that on hand to make a big pot of iced tea. So with the description and it's saying make it at a liter at a time, I can see that they might be suggesting this is great as iced tea because of that way of brewing. And I can really see me doing that. And actually, it's starting to warm up. I think spring is coming early, and I might just try that. And actually, I'm thinking this might be really good cold brew. I'm actually going to try that too.